Good morning, everyone. This is the first of my live Facebook talks, and this one is dedicated to an introduction of why I'm running and who I am. And I'm happy that you're here, and let's go ahead and get started. So I want to, first off, just kind of introduce myself a little bit. My name is Hildebrandt. It's Madeline Hildebrandt, and I go by Mad. And I am running for CD2, and there are various reasons. But to begin with, let me just tell you a little bit about my story. Mine is probably a standard New Mexican and Southwestern story. What my parents were not wealthy people. We weren't wealthy people as they grew up. We also weren't the poorest people. My dad was an auto mechanic, and just like so many people, we come from humble roots. My parents worked hard to provide a living for me and my sister and my brothers, and they worked very hard, and they provided us with a lot of love. And really, with family, when you're talking, we in New Mexico particularly, when we're talking about family, family is our first choice of lifestyle. We love family, and it's the same in my family. My parents provided us with everything that was possible, all the happiness and love that they could. And what we lacked for money, we got in love. And my parents made sure to take us to the museum and to hikes and everything that you could do that just brought family together. And that's what I've done with my children. I have 2 children, and I have 2 grandchildren. And it's for them. It's for my children. It's for your children and for your grandchildren, and just our future on this planet. This is why I decided that I needed to run, is for our future. Today, I am a mother and a professor, and I raised 2 great kids, and both of them have gone to college. That's something that New Mexicans, and that's something that we want for our children. We want our children to have better lives than we have. That was the American dream that we're supposed to have, is a better life for our kids, better than our lives, and our lives are supposed to be better than our parents' lives. That's the American dream. And that is being stymied, it's being blocked by the people in Washington, D.C. who are trying to take that away from us. And that's something that I'm not content with. I'm not happy with that as a person who has gone through that myself. I went into the military in order to be able to take advantage of the GI Bill. And I went to college and became a historian, and I continued going to school until I got my PhD. And I knew I wanted to teach. That's what I wanted to do. And when I got my bachelor's degree, it didn't look like there wasn't a good situation for me for trying to become a teacher in the local schools because of my husband being in the military, and we moved around a lot. So I just continued going to school until I got my PhD and became a professor, and now I teach adjunct, because I am able to do that in all the locations that we have lived in over the years. And I also substitute taught during those years in various school districts. So I spent 2 years in the military. My husband spent 30, and we traveled around. And then when he retired, we knew we were going to come back to Socorro. And so this is where we are. I am a veteran then. My husband is a veteran, and veterans issues are very important to us. And veterans issues are something that get kind of pushed under the rug. A lot of people say they like veterans, or that you hear this thing, thank you for your service. I love veterans. I'm going to run on a platform of veterans. But over the years, every time somebody says that, they forget veterans. And being a veteran, that is something that I'm not going to forget. I can't forget veterans because I am one. So over the course of the last year since I've been running for Congress, I realized that there are three main reasons why I'm running for Congress. And the first one I already discussed, and that's family and the future of our collective families. The second one is my love of country. And as a veteran, as a person who went into the military, and I was in the Coast Guard, it was to support our country, to support the people of our country, and not to support a government, not to support a particular person who's president, but to support our way of life, the structure of our government, the way everything is meant to be, and as a democracy. And those things, again, I'm seeing under attack. And those can't be under attack. And it's through the election system and the fact that we can freely vote that we can protect those things. And because anybody can run for Congress, anybody can run for city council, anybody can do these things. And I felt that it was time for somebody who isn't political, who's never been politically minded, and just a regular person to go out there and stand up for everybody else who is just American citizens, regular people. The third of these reasons is that I felt that Washington, D.C. is filled with political elites, and those political elites do not represent us. And again, these things are kind of intertwined. But it seems to me that somebody that goes to Washington and has this political agenda that they've thought about for their whole life, they seem to follow the same path. They seem to go to school and get for political science or something, and then they go on to become a lawyer, and then they go on to begin their career in politics. But that's the same path. That's the same path, the same kind of people that we've been sending time and time and time again. And I think it's time to change that. It's time to say, wait a minute, this maybe isn't the right path. These maybe aren't the right people to send. Those are possibly the people that should be supporting and in supporting roles of the people who are making the decisions to help make those decisions, but that doesn't mean that they should be the ones making those decisions. It should be the people making these decisions. And it's important that people, when they go to Congress or when they go into a government role, that they can't forget that it isn't themselves that they're representing. It's the people who send them there that they're representing. And they need to go back and they need to talk to those people and get those ideas from them. And remember that that's what we're talking about. That's what they have to go to Congress. That's what I'm going to go to Congress to do, is to represent you, not to represent me, and not to represent the political elite that's already there. Let me talk a couple of things. I want to talk about guns first off, because that's what's on all of our minds after all the most recent school shooting, after all of the mass events that we've been experiencing in this country, and it does seem like it is an epidemic. And there are some things that I think that we can do right away. We do need to have stronger background checks, and that is something that I will go and talk about and try to bring forth. We do need to have mental health screenings for somebody who wants to own a gun, and if those people are found to have problems, then we need to address that and take those guns away from those people, not from everybody, but from those people. We need to have age limits so that somebody who's 16 is not going in to the local Walmart or the local gun shop and buy guns. A 16-year-old is not prepared to own a gun and is not prepared to have one without supervision. We are looking at military-grade weapons that are easily available on the street, and that is not acceptable. And we do need to talk about a ban on AR-15s and on guns that are military grade. We need to discuss these things. I am a veteran and I do own guns, but I, as many veterans, believe that we were trained to use those guns, and we were trained to use them only to deal with other people. And we're looking at people buying these guns to use against other people, not in a military situation, but just because they want to, and that needs to end. Let me talk about about education, a little bit about education, because that again is another thing that's near and dear to me because of my being an educator. I believe that our children are the source of our future. They are the base that everything is built upon, and we need to fix our education system, and not the way that this current administration is talking about doing. Vouchers will not work. They cannot work. That is just taking money away from our public schools and putting that money into private schools, into private hands, and nobody is watching over that to see what kind of an education those children are getting. And they don't report to anybody. If it's government money, if it's public money, then we need it in public hands, and we need public oversight. I think that we need to look at expanding early childhood education. Children at the age of 3 these days are ready for school. This is not the childhood of our years when we were children. We didn't have computers that we were busily playing with, most of us, when we were small. We were playing in the backyard. But children today are playing on the computer, and they are computer literate at 3. Many of them are playing video games and reading, and they know so much at the age of 3 that they're ready for school, and they become bored if they don't have that. But likewise, children of economically challenged families do not have access to computers necessarily, and they do not have access to the things that are making the more wealthy children better prepared for school and for life. And I think that all children at the age of 3 need to have access to early childhood education. I would like to reduce the cost of higher education. I would like to work towards having the first 2 years of school, of college, being free. If we can swing more than that, I would be very happy. And so I believe that education, higher education, is really important. And when we're looking at New Mexico and we're thinking about higher education, our children are educated. Our children are. But we don't have jobs for them. So our children are leaving. And so we need to figure out ways to enable these children to stay home, to stay in New Mexico. And one of those ways, I think, is through vocational education. Because not every child wants to go to school, to go get a 4-year degree. Some people want a vocation. And I think it's important to get back to that, to get back to teaching vocational education in the high schools and in college. Let's talk a little bit about law enforcement. So while I was in the military, I was in the Coast Guard. I was a military police. We called it shore patrol in the Coast Guard. And I believe that my experiences in the military police and my knowledge will help to inform my decision making for supporting our police. We need to support state and local law enforcement. We need to figure out ways to bring more of the federal monies back to our communities. We need to bring in monies that will help us to crack down on crime, like the opioid epidemic, which there are laws in place and there is money in place that will allow communities to target, or community police, the police officers, to target our drug dealers, and in order to find them, in order to make buys and then of the drugs, and then in order to arrest these people. But that money is not necessarily available to rural communities. And so much of New Mexico and so much of the south half of New Mexico is rural. And that money is, by and large, not available to these rural communities. And in a lot of these communities, we see meth being made, and it's hard to target these people, and it's hard to target the people that are bringing in the drugs and making the drugs and selling them to our children. And too many of our children are dying, and it needs to end. And that is through our police force. And so we do need to support that. We need to support training for our police so that they know how to target the right people and not just certain people. Because it isn't always something that you can look and say, look, that person by the color of their skin is probably drug trafficking. That is not true. That is not real. And we need the training that will allow them to target the right people. Let's go on and talk about the environment. We need to reverse this Trump administration's anti-environment, pro-fracking agenda. We have to stop that. And that is going to take somebody on the ground. That is going to take all of us. And that is going to take who we send to Washington in order to do that. And this is somebody that needs to be able to stand up to Washington. We need to, here in New Mexico, we have so many sunny days and we have so much wind that we know that renewable energy is something that we could position ourselves to be a leader in this country, not to come in last like we always seem to do. We come in last so often. Why would we come in last in renewable energy? That's not to say that we have to immediately close down every job that's in the East, because we can't do that. There are people that rely on those jobs, but we do need to begin the switch over to renewables. If we think about what Volvo has said just recently, and I believe the other German cars, Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes, I think, are all discussing it, is going away from gasoline-powered automobiles. Well, what is New Mexico going to do then? What are our eastern communities going to do then when gasoline is not valuable, when it devalues? And so we need to be ready to switch to renewables. And that's going to be a long, hard discussion, and it's something that we need to talk about so that we're positioned as the leaders and not the last. If we just look at, just in 2016, solar energy was creating U.S. jobs at 17 times the rate of the national economy. We can do that in New Mexico. There were more than 260,000 jobs created in the U.S. solar industry. We can create that in New Mexico. We need to have that here. The wind industry in the U.S. now has over 100,000 jobs. Those need to be in New Mexico. And we need to be ahead of the curve. And that's something that we can do with the right discussions and the right leadership. Another thing that I want to talk about, I think the last thing I really want to talk about is families, working families. And we need to support our working families. It takes two jobs these days for a family to get ahead, or just in order to make ends meet. And we need to expand paid family leave. We need to expand medical leave. And we have to enforce equal pay for equal work legislation. We must enforce that. And again, for families, I am a strong supporter of single-payer health care. And that is something that we need to have. We need to be thinking about our families. That's all I'm here to talk about today. We are going to be starting our Mondays with Mad starting next week with this upcoming Monday. Our topic is going to be education. And I would like all of you to send questions because I would like to see them in advance so that I can address what most people are interested in. Again, education is going to be our topic on Monday at 6 p.m. And please send any questions to contact, or actually we're going to have a new one. It's Mondays at mad4nm.com. So send any questions. Mondays at mad4nm.com. And thank you for being here. And I will see you on Monday.